It is now my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon, Dr. Jerome Chelliah. Dr. Jerome Chelliah is an immigrant from war-torn Sri Lanka, moving to California at the age of 11. He's now a board-certified OBGYN and the current vice president at the clinical operation at HerMD. He's a graduate of the University of California, San Francisco Schools of Medicine, and Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and has held physician leadership roles at the Cleveland Clinic and Kaiser Permanente. He's widely published in lay press, including the Los Angeles Times and Huffington Post, in academic journals, such as the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. He's the co-founder of Storytime, an oral narrative storytelling organization embedded within the American higher ed institutions. And in his free time, he enjoys gastronomy, abstract art, and making craft cocktails. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jerome Chelliah.
I am delighted to be here. Much like you, I believe that our ultimate classroom is our life. Every page, a lesson. Every chapter, a revelation. We're here today, some as strangers, some as friends, some as colleagues, some as family. And our lives are intersecting and interacting with each other in a tangible way, giving us an opportunity to both learn and to teach the overarching truths that we have gathered along the way. That is the ultimate purpose of our gathering, of any gathering, is to transmit experiences, because you and I both know that to not transmit an experience of value is to betray it. It is with this ethos that I want to share 3 lessons that I have gathered along my life. And perhaps they will add some value to yours. But more importantly, I hope that it will encourage you to share the classroom of your life, both while you're here and when you return back home. My first story comes from my childhood. I grew up in Sri Lanka in the midst of a civil war. Sri Lanka is a land of grand juxtapositions. To the outside world, it is paradise. But for those of us who grew up there, we did so under the chokehold of fear. Unlike what most assume, a civil war is not constant. There are pockets of normalcy where you forget that you are in the midst of war. In these moments, when war seemed to be a distant memory, one of my favorite activities was to go to the nearby harbors. Here, I would see grand ships coming in and out, bringing with it goods and taking with it dreams. One day, I witnessed a stranded ship. The fishermen nearby were discussing how the rudder of the ship had broken. It took weeks to repair, and when the ship was finally set free, I saw the discarded old rudder. What amazed me was how small the rudder was. I could not fathom how something so small could be so essential. I would learn that the rudder, a small and invisible part of the ship, was essential in setting the direction of these ships. Likewise, when I look back at my life, it is the seemingly small things that insignificant at the time that have set the direction of my life. These include an inquisitive why, an exploratory how, or an encouraging nod by a stranger, friend, or teacher. Once, I told a teacher that the idea of me becoming a physician was impossible. And she said, "Jerome, the difference between impossible and I'm possible is a singular apostrophe. Now, every time that I hear the word impossible, whether it be in a classroom or a boardroom, I can't but imagine thinking, I'm possible. Life is measured in these small, magical moments. It is powered by people who come to serve as our own mighty rudders. And you, our teachers, more so than any other profession, are the ultimate rudders of our world. In your deed and action, you set the direction of societies and move the direction of the world. So if there are moments where you question the impact of your work, where you question the legitimacy of your value, remember, your legacy is not what you have taught or how long you have taught. Your legacy is every single student who has been changed because of small moments of impact that redirected their lives. You are the essential rudders of our society. My second story comes from my adolescence. I moved to America at the age of 11, bruised, bashed, and concussed by a civil war. Walking into my first day of school, I felt the foreignness of America, or more precisely, my foreignness to America. In my first American classroom, there was a bowl of apples on the teacher's desk and a Henry David Thoreau quote that was plastered onto the chalkboard. It read, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." I wondered what people saw in me as I struggled to assimilate into the topography of American life, as I floundered to learn English, as I metabolized a newfound identity as a person of color, as I came to terms with my sexuality, and as I digested the phantoms and paranoia of my childhood. I coped using food, ballooning to 250 pounds at the expense of a shrinking self-esteem. I came undone at the intersection of these identities. My teachers would meet me in this brokenness and break me open to new possibilities. Perhaps nothing embodies this more than that bowl full of apples on my first day of class, a fruit that has become the symbolic lexicon of education. Because whenever you look at an apple, you can see one of two things. You can see an apple awaiting consumption, or you can see an orchard waiting to bloom. If you see just the apple, you'll eat it and you'll move on. But if you can see the orchard in the apple, you'll cut it, you'll peel it, you'll seed it, and you'll plant it. People are just like apples. If you can get them to harness their seeds, their lives can blossom into an orchard, bearing fruits not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. That is what my AVID teachers did for me. They saw the orchard in me long before I could see it in myself. And in doing so, they taught me a valuable lesson that I have carried throughout my life. See people for their potentials, not for their circumstance. See people for their possibilities, not for their improbabilities. After all, it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. The final story comes from my adulthood, and in particular from the pandemic. As it was for most of us, the pandemic was a time of turbulence, where the line between normal and aberrant was blurred. For me, it was also the time when my spouse and I decided to part ways. On the day of our divorce, the headline story from the local newspaper was about a volcanic eruption off the coast of Costa Rica. I read the story thinking, how apropos, a volcano is erupting thousands of miles away the same day as a tectonic eruption in my own life. Months later, I found myself in Costa Rica on a layover. The local TV station was doing a segment on the aftermath of that volcanic eruption. Most coverage about volcanic eruptions are about the damage that it had done, what it had destroyed. However, this coverage was an analysis of the new land that had formed as a result of the spewed lava, how the very lava that had destroyed had also created new land. That is to say, that the eruption was essential to the expansion of that country. The pandemic was a volcano that shifted the world on its axis. And erupting the lives of us as well as our students in intangible ways. The topography of our lives are forever changed. Every valley, a testament to what we have lived through. Every mountaintop, a testament to what we have loved through. Now, standing on the other side of this eruption, it is easy to count the things that we have lost, the ways in which the world will never be the same. But our futures are not predicated on what we have lost, but on what we have left. Because expansion always follows eruptions. And this is your expansive moment, a moment to recalibrate your joy and to re-energize your calling. A moment to celebrate all the ways in which you have set the direction of big ships, to celebrate all the orchards that you created out of a single apple, to celebrate all the instances where you were that apostrophe between impossible and I'm possible, and to celebrate your resiliency in the midst of 2 eruptive years that has tested everything and everyone. And now what follows is your expansion. Harness every moment to embrace, to elevate, to accelerate the alchemy of your being. Let the classroom of your life be glorious. Thank you so much.